Imagine this. You walk into a gym, you're looking to get in shape, and the trainer says the only way to make progress, do anything meaningful, is to lift weights until you tear a muscle. You look at him like, are you crazy, bro? And you leave. I hope. Or if you were a little too trusting and you were like, okay, I guess you know what you're talking about, you'd stay and you'd do the thing, and eventually you would injure yourself and you'd lose any progress because you were then waiting to heal, to go back and do it all over again. Doesn't make a lot of sense, right? So why do some people have this mindset when it comes to music? That it's all about the suffering, that you have to bleed for your craft or practice until you injure yourself. Kind of silly, right? Hey, I'm Russ. Thanks for spending some time with me today, friend. Hope you're having a good week. Let's talk about this. I've been getting some feedback from viewers like yourself, which I appreciate all of you watching and commenting, and the interaction is super fun. It's been really positive. I've made some friends. I never expected that to happen. But I've been getting a few comments here and there that illustrate kind of a mindset that I think we need to address. And I'm not going to call anybody out because the people who are saying that, I genuinely think we would probably have some things in common and we could be friends. And what they say and who says it is not really important. What's important is the underlying fear that I think is peeking through in what they're saying. So let's break it down. The comments I've been getting, both here and in other platforms, they always go something like this, that if you're not suffering, you're not serious. If you're not practicing for hours and hours on end, it doesn't count. That anything less is cutting corners and it doesn't mean anything. Or if you want to do anything meaningful, you have to bleed for it. And this does a couple things to me. On the one hand, it kind of irritates me as a teacher because I don't agree with a lot of that. There's a few kernels of truth in there, and we'll get to that. But I think what it reveals is some fear, right? Like this person has probably spent a lot of time and hours, and they're afraid that it was a waste. And I want to reassure you, if you've thought this, it's not a waste. Getting to know an instrument, learning a skill, I don't believe is ever a waste. In Proverbs, it says, all hard work leads surely to profit. Now, that can mean money, sure, but I think there's more to it than that. I think it also means benefit. If you work hard at something, you're going to get benefit out of it. So don't think that the hours you spend practicing are a waste. But there is a difference between productive work and performative work. And we'll get into the difference here. So back to this. This isn't really about practice or how much time you spend with the instrument. It's about fear. Okay? Fear that your effort won't be enough. Fear that your effort is wasted. Or fear that you can't do enough. And oh man. I get that. I've been there. I've been that person practicing, thinking I didn't start early enough. I started too late or not young enough or didn't have the right gear or plan or whatever. I fill in the blank. I've been that person. And what I've learned is the work you put in matters. It does help. It makes a difference. But you can't listen to that fear telling you that it's not enough. Because it's not enough is like, well, not enough for what? I practice way less now than I did 10 years ago. And I practice way less difficult things when it comes to guitar. And I'm having way more fun than I think I ever have. Does that mean it's not as useful or not as meaningful or it doesn't count or, well, that's silly because from one perspective, I'm being more productive. I'm putting more music into the world. Whereas before, I spent my life in a practice room, which is great, don't get me wrong, but that's not the point. The point isn't to spend it all in a practice room. If you sat down to make music and learn an instrument, you didn't pick up an instrument to learn scales or to learn crazy wonky chord shapes. You learned for the sake of making music. And the things you learned, the scales, the chord shapes, the riffs and different things, you learned in service to the music you wanted to make. And that's the key. It's in service to the music you want to make. Okay? So, this is what changed my mind about all of that. First, like I said, there's a kernel of truth in some of that fear. And that's what makes that fear so scary and kind of it weasels its way in there because there's a little bit of truth to it. There's a little bit of truth to it. But that kernel of truth isn't everything. So what's the kernel of truth? Yes, it takes work. Of course it takes work. If you watch my videos, you're never going to hear me say it doesn't take work. That's silly. And if you pay attention to life, learning a new skill takes work. Duh. If anyone tells you otherwise, they're lying. Or I don't know what. I can't comprehend that, because of course it takes work. Now, it doesn't mean that work isn't fun. Sometimes that work is a lot of fun. I really enjoy doing work in music. Is it hard? Yeah, sure. Is it frustrating? Absolutely. I've learned some stuff recently that was just kicking my butt. And then I finally started to turn the corner and it started to kind of click, and that's really fun. But sometimes in the middle of that process, you're like, no. Here I am making faces on YouTube again. So there's a kernel of truth in that. Yes, of course it takes work. And there are no shortcuts. You don't get to shortcut the process, okay? You don't get to shortcut the process. No, nobody's selling you that here. I'm not selling you any shortcuts. I'm not selling you anything, okay? I help people go from where they are to where they want to be in music, all right? I'm not selling you a course. I'm not selling you shortcuts. That's not a thing because shortcuts don't exist, all right? There are easier paths and harder paths. Some of that is determined by where you want to go, and some of that is determined by how well you define where it is you want to go, okay? And there's some truth in that, passion and dedication matter. It's okay to be passionate about music. I'm passionate about music. You might be passionate about music, but it might not consume your life, and that's okay. You may not have the time to dedicate 3 hours a day to learning an instrument. And let me tell you, friend, that is okay. No caveats, no qualifications, no ifs, ands, or buts. That is okay. You get to decide what's meaningful in music. If you hear nothing else in this video, it's that. You get to decide what is meaningful for you in your music journey. Okay? So, passion and dedication are real. They're fantastic. But they're not everything, okay? If you meet someone who's more passionate than you, it doesn't make you less than them. Okay? It doesn't make what you do in music less important or less valuable or less, I don't know, whatever that voice is telling you. This is your music journey. Let them walk their music journey. You do you. Okay? You do you, boo. Now, let's talk about the lies in that belief, mentality, fear. The first one is suffering doesn't equal progress. Full stop. Suffering doesn't equal progress. There is definitely a tendency in music, I think especially, to glorify the suffering for the instrument as a badge of honor. And unlike, to continue my fitness analogy, unlike fitness, the suffering isn't the point. And I'm not going to say the suffering is the point in fitness, but there's something about the actual suffering in fitness that is the benefit, right? You get endorphins and all that sort of stuff that I'm not qualified enough to talk about. But, well, I'll talk about this. I like running. You might think I'm crazy. I probably am. I like running. I just do. I can't tell you why. I have always been fairly athletic. I've always been fairly fit. Good genetics. But I like running. And the benefit to me was the actual suffering, because it's the mental suffering of, I want to quit, but I'm going to keep going. Okay? And there's something to be said about that mindset when it comes to music. But in music, the point isn't the suffering. And yet, we have a tendency to try and make it that. We think, oh, I played and my fingers were bleeding. And we wear that like a badge of honor. I know, I've been there. I remember sitting and practicing for 3 hours in one sitting until I literally couldn't feel my backside. Like, I went numb. I was sitting for so long playing my guitar. And I think about it now and I'm like, did I actually make any progress? Probably, but probably not nearly as much as some of my shorter practice sessions where I was focused and had an objective and was just like, I'm gonna do this thing for the next 30 minutes. So the suffering didn't actually do anything for me other than like boost my ego, right? And that's what I'm talking about earlier when I talk about performative progress, right? There's performative hard work. It wasn't necessarily productive. It was performative because I felt like I earned something. And all I earned was a numb booty. So the injury is never a badge of honor, okay? Whether that's, bleeding fingers, sore throat, tendonitis, carpal tunnel, that's never a badge of honor. Don't wear it like one. If you're flirting with injury, if something hurts, if something doesn't feel right, like, see a doctor, I've been there, had to do that too. It's not fun. And I used to wear it like a badge of honor. I've been there. Like, I'm guilty of that. And I had to get over that because I realized, oh, that didn't actually make me a better player. It just made me a snob. The other side of the injury piece is that it's a forced break. So in college, I injured my hand. I had inflammation. I practiced so much and had too much tension. And I had inflammation in my hand. I couldn't play for more than 15 minutes at a time. And this is down from practicing, 3 hours a day. Okay. Now I was studying music in school, so it was kind of required. And I was studying very hard music. And I loved it. I loved it. And I miss it. I miss playing that music. I miss that dedication to the craft. But that was imposed on me, by me. Keep that in mind. I want to come back to that. Because I wonder sometimes if the people who think this way, and I used to think this way too, I wonder sometimes if the people who think you have to bleed for your craft, if it's an insight into some fear or experience or feeling of inadequacy that they had, either they bombed on stage or they felt insecure about something or they had a parent that told them they had to do it. It was imposed on them. I hope not. Because that's tragic and that's what makes people not like music. For me, I loved it. I still do. And I miss playing like that. But back to the story. I injured myself playing. And what that led to was a forced break. I had to stop playing. All but bare minimum to maintain minimum requirements. And I didn't do recitals that year. I didn't do exams, playing exams. I did bare minimum playing because I couldn't. I had to fix the injury. which meant lost progress. And that is the opposite of the point. The whole point is progress. And progress comes from consistency, not just hard work. Okay? Progress comes from consistency. Over and over and over. You execute the plan repeatedly. That's what I mean when I say productive hard work versus performative hard work. Performative makes you feel like you earned something. It's a badge of honor. Productive means you actually accomplished something. Okay? Both can be considered hard work. Both can feel hard. But they have very different results. One boosts your skill. One boosts your ego. Anyway, I'll get off my soapbox now. So let's talk about what actually drives progress. The productive versus the performative progress. Okay? Performative progress makes you feel like you earned something, right? Kind of boosts your ego a little bit. Productive progress actually builds your skill. Productive progress is built in consistency. It's that 15 to 20 minutes a day focused on a specific thing. That will beat a 3-hour session every time. Because there's limits to your muscles and your memory and your brain. There's limits to those. And those limits will grow as your skill grows. I can practice a lot longer now than I could when I first started. And by practice, I mean that focused, the hard work practice. Not just hard physically, but hard mentally. I can practice a lot longer now than I could then. Because I built that muscle. Like that's another muscle to build, that internal, that mental muscle. And your ear training, the ear muscle, as well as the physical muscle of your fingers and tendons and such. Those have limits. So the 15 to 20 minutes executed every day beats that 3-hour marathon once or twice a week. Because the in-between is where you lose the progress. Right? It's not unlike walking up the down escalator. You've got to keep going. If you stop, you lose the progress and come back down. Eventually, my first guitar teacher told me this, eventually you break through some thresholds and then you'll never fall back down below them. I can set my guitar down for weeks at a time and I'm never going to forget what a C chord is. Okay, that is committed to memory forever, barring a traumatic brain injury or something. Like, that's never going away. The key is consistency, the consistent execution. I've talked about it before, the Seinfeld method. Start a streak, don't break the streak, don't break the chain. Keep the streak going, you'll see progress. You will be productive, not performative, productive. You're going to actually build the skill. Now let's talk about what you're building towards, okay? Because one of the things I hear in these views is that if you're not just selling out for your craft, it's not meaningful. If you want to do something meaningful with music, then you have to do X, Y, and Z. And the part I want to push back on is, what is meaningful? Meaningful to whom? People who say things like that have one view of meaningful, and it's theirs. And they think if you don't conform to my view of meaningful, then what you're doing doesn't matter. And I get it. It can feel like your standard is the standard. I've probably flirted with that view myself, thinking, oh, if you don't want to play every day, you're not a real musician. Or if you don't want to gig all the time and go on tour, you're not a real musician. Well, I play an average of like 1 or 2 shows a week. Does that make me less of a musician than the guy playing 100? No. Because I defined what's meaningful for me. You have to define what's meaningful for you. Whether that's playing for your wife on your anniversary, or playing for your kids, or teaching your kids to play music, or playing at church, or shredding solos in front of 1,000 people. All of those are meaningful. And none is more meaningful than the other. That's what I want you to pick up on. None of those is more meaningful than the other. What's important is that you define what's meaningful to you, and don't let anybody else define what's meaningful. You define what's meaningful. People are going to try and tell you, oh, that's not a worthy goal because you just want to strum chords and play along with your grandkids, or you want to play in the church worship band. They can't decide what's meaningful for you. What's meaningful to you and your music journey. It's your music journey, my friend. You have to decide where you want it to take you and what that looks like. Now, there will be some work along the way. I'm not going to tell you anything differently. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. I'm not going to shortcut it. If that's what you took away from one of my other videos, my bad, you missed it, because I never said there was a shortcut or that there was an easy way in. It's not complicated, but it's kind of like the fitness example. The key to losing weight is real simple. Eat less, move more. The key is doing it, right? The key is doing it and doing it consistently. Music is kind of similar. Knowing what to do is not complicated. Executing it, and executing it consistently is the key. Sometimes it takes hard work, but it doesn't mean that work isn't fun. I want to be clear on that. Sometimes that work can be really fun. Sometimes it can be frustrating, especially if it's not going the way you want it to. That's why sometimes it helps to have a second set of eyes or a coach or a teacher. It doesn't have to be me. Find you one, find someone else who's better than you. Just say, hey, I'm trying to play this and it's not working. Help me out. Maybe they can be helpful. If you want to work with me and get my eyes on your playing, click the link in the description. So let's bring this home. The bottom line is people will try to tell you what your music journey should look like. People will try to tell you what is meaningful when it comes to making music. Some mean well. I'll choose to believe. Some don't. Neither of them matter. You have to decide what your music journey is. You have to decide what is meaningful to you in your music journey. I'm not going to try and tell you what your music journey should look like. I can tell you how to get there. I can help you try and get there. I'd be honored if you so choose. But I'm not going to tell you what it looks like. And I'm not going to tell you that it should be this or it should be that or it should be this level of dedication or this level of skill or... No, only you can decide that. If I were to impose that on you, or if someone else were to impose that on you, be it a parent, a peer, a colleague, a child, fill in the blank of the who, then that's just them projecting their idea of what's meaningful onto you and your music journey. And depending on who it is, they might just be expressing some of their own fears and insecurities about their own music journey. And that's okay. Love them, give them a hug, smile, and move along. These are not the droids you're looking for. Okay? It's on you to not let them decide that for you. You have to decide what your music journey is going to look like, what you want your music journey to look like, where you want to go, and then do the work to get there. And I want you to listen to that. Do the work to get there. Because I'll never say it doesn't require work. Okay? You'll never hear me say that. If you do, it's AI. I don't believe that is true. That it doesn't take work. I don't believe that you can shortcut the process. I don't believe any of that. Now, I do believe it should be fun at some point. If you're not having fun, then you're doing something wrong. Because even in the hard work, it's still fun. Okay? If you learn to find that fun, all right? I also don't believe that it will happen instantly. I've said it before. You'll hear me say it here. You'll hear me say it in other videos. You don't learn a language in a day unless you're like a crazy genius or something. But music is a language. You don't learn to speak it in a day. Okay? You don't learn a skill in a day. Are there people out there who can? Maybe, possibly. But the rest of us mere mortals have to take the time. And yes, it takes time. And you can compress the time by working at it more and being more consistent and more focused and make your progress very deliberate. But it's not going to happen instantly. It never does. It didn't happen for any legendary musician you've ever heard of. They worked at it. It took them time. I have good news for you, my friend. Every single musician that you admire started exactly where you started, at 0. All of them. Doesn't matter who it is. They all started at exactly the same place and became the person that we know now. Doesn't matter. Beethoven, Jimi Hendrix, Jimmy Page, John Mayer, Steve Vai, Stevie Wonder, Stevie Ray Vaughan. Notice that I'm just kind of following the names here. They all started from the same place. Now, some might have had more, advantages than others given their upbringing and their background or their environment or whatever. That's not the point. The point is they all started from 0. Just like you, just like me. We all start from the same place. Where we want to go can only be determined by us. I have to determine where I want to go with music. I have to determine what's meaningful to me. You have to determine what's meaningful to you. Don't let other people try and tell you what you want to do with music. You already know. You already know. If you would like some help with that and help getting there, I would be honored to be part of your music journey. Click the link in the description. Thanks for spending some time with me today. Have a great rest of your week. See you next time.